Okay, so welcome to book club week 2. We're going to read chapters 3 through 5 this week. But I'm just saying that, okay, so I have pinned the original book club post for this book to the featured guide of Dream Team. So if you click on that, you will see the original post, all the original chapter divisions that we're going to be covering, the schedule, the Zoom link. And then in the comments of that particular post is where I'm putting the recording. I'm putting it in two places. Number one, I'm putting it in the recording from the day, like tonight, meet us for book club. Recording's going in there, but it's also going in that pinned post for the book club. Okay? Julie's laughing at me, but I want you guys to know. And it's on YouTube. So, okay. What did she say? Okay, let me see. Kinsey said, what? My toddler decided to find my new thing of laundry soap and started playing in it. I don't even know how she got in. So I'm listening. So she's cleaning up laundry soap. That's hilarious. Awesome. Well, have fun. We're glad you're here listening, though, Kinsey. Okay, Amanda, do you want to start us out with chapter 3? Because Amanda was messaging me and she's like, and then in chapter 3, and then in chapter 3. And I was like, listen, I got to go read chapter 3. Hang on. so, so, do you want to get us started this week? It was really good, by the way. When I read chapter 3, I was like, aha. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I said, yeah, it was just several days ago, and this time I was not good about taking my notes because I had all intentions to go back and read a second time and highlight, and that didn't have to happen. But
Oh,
honestly, chapters 3, 4, and 5, they were so good. Like I really do want to go back through them one more time, and I had high hopes to do that today, and it didn't happen. But anyway, I'll go over a few things that resonated me from chapter 3 on one more try. And on page 49, he said, much of your success will come down to executing basic tasks again and again. And I thought that was so true, not just about Plexus, but about everything in our lives. Because if you think about it, even growing spiritually, all the things that we do in motherhood, you don't see fruit from those now, from those things. Oftentimes, we don't see the fruit right now. That comes later, but it all goes back to executing those same basic tasks again and again. And I thought, with Plexus, oftentimes we want to look for the next shiny thing. What's this person done that has ranked emerald so fast? But over and over, we hear the leaders in the company talk about it going back to the basic things that we know from the beginning. And yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't have to tweak those and learn how to message better, learn how to put out ever content, but the basic activities do remain the same as far as reaching out to people and starting conversations. Yeah, we got to get better at that, but it always goes back to conversations. It always has, you know what I'm saying? And then putting it out there on social media. So that just really hit me, and I think where we often fail is not giving enough time. And we've talked about that. Like, I'm going to be super consistent for like 20 days. And then we expect to see all this fruit from our labor, and it just doesn't happen. They say it takes 90 days, and we so often want to give up before then. Or we want to start looking for something better or some other strategy or some other, what is it, onboarding system, whatever it is. All those things are good, but it's almost like squirrel to these things instead of continuing to do the simple basic activities, because it seems almost too easy. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and we're not seeing that immediate fruit. So that really stuck out to me. Must learn to do simple things well. And then on page 50, he said, you can hide from yourself sometimes, but you can't hide from the numbers. The numbers are a black and white reflection directly related to your effort. So I was like, ouch on that. Because I was like, yes, and your numbers indicate that you have not been consistent. That is exactly what they indicate. I was super consistent towards the end of the year and ended up experiencing some really good momentum and growth, and then got in a funk, whatever. Y'all know things happen. And I have not been consistent. And that my numbers, black and white, reflected it very badly for the month of April. So onward and upward from there. So yeah, that was just a few highlights from chapter 3. It was just all, I thought, really, really good. Anybody else, y'all feel free to piggyback off that or share something. Because I did just hit like a small part of chapter 3. There was a lot of good stuff.
I loved on page 41 in the middle of the page, it says you must be intentional and look for opportunities in everything you do. That mindset must become second nature to you. When you practice this strategy long enough, it becomes a reflex. You don't think about it, you just do it. And that was like, ouch. That was really good. That's something I would like. I would like for it to become a reflex, like just one more time, one more try, one more try. Um, that was something that I loved. And then I had the same thing, the same highlights that you had. More tries equal more successes. I loved that. Um, and I love the analogy of the piñata. That was so good. I could
Mm-hmm.
see that. Um, oh, and page 49, I found that most people are tired from too little activity instead of too much. I was like, oh, that is good. That was a really gut punch. But it was a really good chapter. Really, really good chapter. Being intentional and then a quiet determination. So I was talking with someone today, and it's another Jewel Diamond, and her points have gone backwards. And she and I were talking about she's had some people, like, just the nature of this business. She's had leaders leave and walk away, and she was just talking about she's in a season of rebuilding. And I said it takes a lot of one more try. It takes a lot. This business is a lot of mental toughness, and it takes a lot of grit, and it takes a lot of determination, and it takes a lot of resilience. It really does. But during the process, just like with anything though, during the process, you have to be reminded of the long-term vision of where you're going, of what this grit and resilience and determination, like, what is that going to mean for me? What is that going to mean for my family? What is that going to mean for my family's future, or whatever it is that you're working for? So that's why I loved this chapter. One more try. Does anybody have anything?
I
Yeah,
can
Julie.
talk about, oh,
Okay, yes,
sorry.
Abby, please.
I don't like cute, so that's why my
Girl.
hair is off. But anyways, right before the
Wait, wait,
part,
wait. So we can look ugly on here, but you
Yeah.
can't because I
Right,
don't have good
Julie?
hair. I'm just
I'm
saying, like
Her
I
sick.
got like
21, her 20,
6 day hair. I got like 6 day hair right here.
was it, are you 21, Abby? 22? Like,
Me too. But I'm
okay.
sick. Okay, I promise I
Oh,
don't
I'm sorry you feel bad.
not you. Okay.
Okay.
Anyways, okay, so one of my like restricting beliefs is like I don't have the capacity or I don't have the time or whatever, and that's an objection that we get all the time. And so I felt like it was on page 48 right before talking about being too tired from too little, talking about you create an extreme condition compared to what you're used to, and when you do that, you expand your capacity for success. And that is something that I've realized recently is that every time I thought I couldn't do more, I always end up doing it and then being like, why did I not think I could do this before? And like I had actually made a post about it recently. Like in college, I thought there was no way that I could work full time and go to college full time. And then I did it. And then now I'm doing things on top of that. So it's just like when you expand yourself, you realize you're capable of more. And I thought that was just a really good way to reframe my mindset and then help address that in other people.
That's really good.
I kind of piggyback somewhat on that because I was kind of torn between the two, but I like what he started on page 42 and then finished on 52, where he said sometimes we accept a lesser life because we weren't given a good role model to follow, or we've suffered through adversity that made us mentally fragile. We wither under criticism and refuse to dig deeper to find the mental toughness and grit that even we didn't know we had.
Mhm.
And then he goes on to page 52. He says, you need to be the type of person who goes out and creates opportunity for yourself. Don't wait, be aggressive. But then he says, when you hide from one more try, all you're doing is disguising your insecurities. And that to me was a very powerful statement because the reason why I don't try again is because of insecurity. That's why because it makes me stop in my tracks because I'm analytical. Well, I already did this once and it didn't work. I already did this 43 times and it didn't work. Why would the 44th time work? But then he says, even when you don't get exactly what you want, and this ties in with what Abby said, when you attempt one more try, the next time you try again, you're not starting from scratch. You're going to be starting from a new level of experience that you can leverage to increase the odds of a better outcome. I've posted 536,000 times on social media, but thankfully they are better than they were when I first started. And it's like, and that's a simple picture, but that also applies to mental toughness.
Mhm.
You know, um, if you can endure your points going backwards and stick to it, then you're going to be able to be prepared and have the grit when things swing back up because you're being consistent. Um, because I mean, I was talking on a Zoom with a lady who she is a professional. What she does is she raises money for trafficked women. Okay, so I don't know what hotter topic that people would be donating to than that kind of thing right now, right? And she made the statement to us. She said, it is so hard to raise money right now. She said it is so hard. She's like, I'm not just talking about like from more, she's like, I'm not just talking about from private entities. She's like, I'm talking about businesses. I'm talking about from the government. I'm talking about from grants. She's like, on all sides. She's like, everybody is holding on to their money. She said, so, and that really helped kind of bust through some of my insecurity because I'm like, dude, April was rough. And I was like, holy smokes. But then I'm like, I know it isn't just me. Yes, can I do more? But I know it isn't just me. And that just confirmed it. So it helped break apart some of those doubts I was having. And it helped me show up better that it isn't personal. This
Mhm.
isn't personal. It's a tough season. It's a tough economy. We just have to keep on plugging.
Mhm. That's good. It's easy to take it personally and think that it's something that's not just working. This isn't for me. Da da da. Yeah, that's really good. Any last thoughts on 3 before we move on to 4? 4 was crazy. I was like, what? When he was talking about all the um time, the way he breaks down the time. Um his mini days on page 58. For me, that means my first day runs from 6 to noon, then from noon to 6, and then from 6 to midnight. I was like, oh, wow. As a girl who goes to bed at 8:30, I cannot have 3 days. You can have 2 days, Abby. You can get 2 in there. But yeah, that was an interesting concept. Like I'll have to think about that a little more. I didn't really sit and ponder this one. Um, because I was like, that is such a new concept. It's going to take me a minute to wrap my brain around that. Julie, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, first of all, that very much overwhelmed me. So I took from the chapter what I felt like I could currently apply to my life. So I'm just going to be honest. If you
Yeah.
guys want to have 3 days and a 24 hours, y'all are going to level up to millionaire soon. I'm not quite there yet. Okay. So I'm just going to be like a couple 100,000 level up, hopefully. Um, but what I did take away from it was how he was talking about how you experience time different than the next person. And so I was thinking about how I feel when I'm doing certain things and how my kids feel when they're doing certain things. Like my son does not like his current history teacher. And so his DVD for history and his work for history is no longer than his one for science, but he loves science. So he acts so dramatic, like this history is going to take him so long. But it literally, I will look at the clock and I'm like, you realize that took you the same amount of time as science? And he's like, no way. I said, yes. And the same thing applies to me. And that to me is why the mental toughness is so important, is because if I'm coming at it with a negative mentality, I'm going to act like it's taking me 10 times longer. But because that's one of the things that I've been working on is showing up, being who I am, not trying to be something else because I think who I am isn't working.
Mhm.
And so that to me is like, yeah, I want to be able to enjoy my Plexus business again and not feel like this 10-pound elephant on my shoulders because I think I'm broken. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that to me, I want to enjoy it again. I want to enjoy sharing about it again. I want to enjoy talking about it again and not be like going into it with a negative mindset of, I'm not this, I'm not that. So that to me was my takeaway.
That's really good. Did anybody else have any thoughts on that? Yeah, I'll be honest, it kind of threw me for a loop. Like you said, the overall concept was, yeah. But as someone who procrastinates a lot, like it was like, ooh, especially on page 61, when you manage your time with a sense of urgency, you become the master instead of the servant. And I was like, yeah, that's my problem is I don't put enough sense of urgency around some things. And I have unfortunately pay the price for that with stress and things not getting done on time or done well or whatever. So that was a gut punch for me. And then top performers measure themselves monthly or weekly. Top performers, the one more thinkers go through this process daily. Your week up on page 63, that was good. Like taking assessment. I don't do that. I'm actually I'm the kind of person I'm like, I don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about why I do the things I do or self-reflection. Like that's, I don't know why I have an aversion to that for some reason. Apparently I need to think about why I have an aversion. But, so like reflection time is hard for me. So reflect, like this would be a little bit of a challenge for me, to measure, right, my performance or measure myself. But I think that it's necessary. I mean, everybody, all the successful people talk about you've got to reflect. John Maxwell, I mean, good grief, every book he writes, you've got to reflect. I'll only focus on the things I didn't get done. That's me, Julie. I'm like, well, I had this list of 10 things, so let me focus on the 7 things that I did not get done rather than the 3 that I did. Yeah. And so it becomes a thing of like beating myself up. Yeah. That's probably a good thing. I mean, they're probably a good estimation of why I do mine too. But on page 64, this one was so powerful. The past is gone forever, but until you let go of it, the past is a thief and steals your ability to dream and imagine. You need to spend time thinking about your future because that's where you're heading. I was like, ooh, that was good because it's so easy for us to think about the good old days or the easy days or my business was booming and I highlighted and underlined 4 times. Yes. Like it's easy to want to look back. My points were so high, or I had VIP customers coming in every month. I was getting all the prizes and da 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 back, back in the good old days, or I had so much more time, or my kids were, in school or out of school or whatever that we want to say happened in the past. And so giving us an excuse or a reason, right, not to show up today, but that steals us from the ability to dream and imagine for the future. So that is something that really jumped out on the page to me. One more thinkers have the innate ability to spend time dreaming and imagining about their future while taking decisive actions in the present to shape what lies ahead. That was such a powerful line right there on page 65. So, does anybody have anything from that one that you want to add? Anybody else? I'm not saying I'm not opposed to the 3. I feel like 3 days in one is kind of a lot, though. I'll be honest. But I do
Because he
want
isn't a mom.
Yeah, I think that's true. He's not. Yeah, that's true. And it's funny because
Um,
we were talking with friends recently, and the guy that we were talking to, he's like a pastor slash counselor, and he was saying men and women literally do not think the same. Like women can have 87 tabs open, and men can maybe have like maybe 2. Maybe 3. It's really on a really good day, And he's just like, you moms are just women's brains are just different. And I'm like, hey, to the men. Anyway, what were you saying, Amanda?
oh, this was not from the book, but it reminded me when Julie said, like, easy to recall all the things that you didn't do. One of the things Amber Miller talked about when we went to Nashville was every night before bed, she has a journal and she starts writing down 3 small wins of the day.
Mhm.
And I remembered that just fresh because I went back and listened to some of her videos that I recorded actually last night when I was walking because I wanted to refresh what she taught on because I knew it was kind of correlated to some of this one more stuff
Mhm.
too. I've seen some of the same elements, but I thought that was really good. And she said oftentimes she'll get right more than 3. Like you think you can't even come up with 3, but just go into because I'm bad about that. Like when what do I go to bed laying down? I'm thinking about all the things I didn't get done, could have done, should have done better or whatever. But she was saying so really get into the practice of counting those positive small wins that you had a day. And then when you at the end of the week, you're gonna look back and it's so encouraging to see, oh, I did actually have all these wins. So I haven't started that yet because I just listened to her again about talking about it yesterday, but I thought that was really good. And then she also had said, because this was in my notebook, in the morning, she briefly writes down who am I, who I want to be today, and how I want to show up today. Like, cause, and like, it goes back to him saying kind of visualizing what you want for your life. So like, what kind of mom do I want to be today? What kind of wife do I want to be today? It's like she sets aside a few minutes and jots that down in the morning. So I just thought that was really powerful.
Mhm. That is good. I know, actually, she said it's hard giving yourself grace sometimes. Thank God for Jesus. And it really is hard to give ourselves grace so many times. And I think, um, the Bible talks so much over and over. What is happening with Julie Courtwright's camera over there? It's like zooming in and out. Like,
I'm clicking my son's expander. Sorry, bro. I
oh,
guess the
I was
best so I
like,
don't
why?
forget.
I was like, well, no, your camera is just zooming in and out like
Is it
that.
really? It's
Yeah.
a brand new Mac, so it might be
Oh,
fancy. Oh, see, there it goes again.
yeah.
I
It
don't
was just
know.
funny because you were like back and then forth. Anyway,
Sorry.
I was like, what is happening? And I could see your hands moving somewhere. But anyway, I was just gonna say the Bible talks over and over about being grateful, being thankful. And I think that's part of it is because when I rejoice in all things, I have to be intentional about, okay, what am I thankful for? I have to actually look for the things to be thankful for. My brain is focused and my mind is focused. And so this is basically like they're what they're saying. Like I've got to be thankful. I've got to oh, that's really cool. That what Kinsey said. But anyway, I've got to be thankful. I've got to be focused and pull out the wins for the day. So many times. And then that can become more of a second nature, more of a, you're going to strengthen that muscle every time you do it. I have a journal right here. Love it. Obviously, it's not on top of my nightstand. It's under some books, but it is a gratitude journal. I got it off Amazon years ago and I still hadn't filled it up. But it's just got the day in there and then it says today I'm grateful for. And then it's just like you can write a few things. And so this was during a really, really anxious filled season for me. 2024 was an extremely anxious filled, and I'm not an anxious type person. So it was really anxious, had a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And um, so I was really intentional about doing that every night before bed. I would get in bed and I would get my pen and I would get this book and I would not necessarily like just grateful for just and I would just sit there and I mean like this one was a slow day of rest and recovery from the boys being sick, brownies after dinner, conversations with family, the promise of God and his gentleness with our human frailty, booked flights to visit Chloe in Colorado next week, right? Like that was that day's thankful things that I was grateful for. And you guys, I can't tell you how helpful that was. So it really was helpful for me to just focus on all the good things and the blessings and even the simple things like brownies after dinner, right? So if you struggle with things like that, then that is super helpful. I need to do that more. But anyway, sorry to chase that rabbit. Sorry, I don't really know where that came from. Um, anybody, does anybody have any thoughts on chapter 5? I mean 4 before we go into 5 about
The
time.
only thing that I saw, because I feel like you covered everything, but I wrote this in like big letters in my book. It says emerald. Because it says, conversely, don't fall into the trap of falling in love with your past if you've had great things happen.
Ooh, yes.
And that to me was very true because it's like I play the comparison game with that on 65. Like that's the bar that I keep going back to when I should be measuring daily as opposed to looking to the past. So, looking to the past for failures and all those kinds of things, sure, but I also look to the past because of the successes that I've experienced. And what if my next success isn't as big as that was? Does that mean I'm a
Mm,
failure? And
mm.
so that was one of those I underlined like 4 times too.
That's really good. That's really good. All right, we'll go on to chapter 5 if anybody has anything else to say. Y'all just unmute yourself. Okay. Chapter 5, one more emotion. This was such a great picture for me. You have an emotional home you live in. How you feel this home, the emotions you choose, is the reality of your life more than anything else. Um, and I love this on page 68. You may seek out worry, insecurity, fear, and anxiety, not necessarily because you want to, but because those emotions are familiar to you. Your mind always seeks out what is familiar because there is a level of comfort, even when the familiar works against you. And I've heard that and heard that and heard that similar, before. But that reading it again was so powerful because, in the same way that people go back to broken relationships or harmful relationships or repeat patterns right in their life of negative behavior or whatever, that's their emotional home that they have built. And wow, like that was really really good. And then thinking of emotions as neither negative or positive, they just are. I was like, oh, that's like they're neutral, kind of, sort of. um that was an interesting thought. Oh my gosh. Um, when triggered, emotions produce biochemical reactions that have a direct impact on a person's a physical state. You guys, we all know this. Like, okay, Abby says this hit me too. I could see situations in which I have had to fight this recently and thought how different my next few months could be looking had I chosen to stay comfortable. Oh, that's good. Abby's got some big changes coming up in the next few months. And you did choose to get uncomfortable. Yeah. So you had to step out of your emotional home. Is that what you're saying? Yes, no, yes. I think that means yes. Yes. So you had to step out of your emotional home into the uncomfortable. But that's going to be exciting, the new changes that are happening. If you don't get intentional about how you interact with your emotions and move toward the emotions you want, you'll live the same life you always have. Once you learn to identify your emotions, they begin to loosen their grip on you. Your awareness means you're gaining control. That was so, so good on page 71. And then I didn't finish the chat. I got to page 75 on getting honest and intentional, and I didn't read that last page there. But this was just so, so good. I liked so much of this chapter. Okay, anybody else? What do you guys have for this chapter? Because I know somebody's got to have something. Julie says, I think so many of us just push through and continue when we're feeling things instead of stopping and talking it out with ourselves. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I do this with my kids. Like if they, are really fearful of something, I'll say, okay, well, what are you afraid of? And I'll have them say it. And like sometimes even just saying out loud and identifying what it is that they're afraid of, they'll say, I don't even know I'm afraid of that. Sometimes you have to talk it out further. Okay, well, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Okay, well, what happens if you fail at this? Well, then I'm going to be embarrassed. Well, why would you be embarrassed? Well, because so and so is going to think bad of me. So you think that the person sitting out there is going to think bad of you if you hit the wrong note when you play piano? Well, no, I guess not. well, then what is there to be embarrassed about? So it's one of those things where I think a lot of us just carry the burden of whatever that emotion, that negative emotion is, and just be like, well, this is just something I'm dealing with instead of talking it out loud. Because once you say things out loud so many times, it takes the sting out of it.
Yep.
It brings you back to reality.
Hmm.
And that to me is why it's so important to have someone in your life that you can express those emotions to and talk through those. And some people are really good at it, and some people have to work really hard at it. But I think it's important for everyone to do.
100%.
Hmm. That's really good and really true.
One thing I made a connection with was when he was talking about deciding which emotions you want to feel, which
Mhm.
feels a little bit unattainable to me in this car moment, but was just about how Amber Miller was talking about a couple weeks ago in Nashville about your identity and like having to capture your thoughts and reframe them to what you
Hmm.
want them to be and what you want to believe about yourself. And it was just like, oh, that's the same way with your emotions and your feelings. Like you have to capture that to, reframe it, change it to, what you want it to be. And so that's something that I thought like I could actively start implementing is trying to make those changes.
That's good. Yeah, Julie, when you were talking, there's a verse in Psalms, I don't know, and something it talks about enlighten my darkness, and that to me, and in a sense, is kind of like those fears and those thoughts. They're in the dark, and when we bring it to the light, it loses its power. It loses the fear and the grip that it has on us so many times. 100%, yeah. And another thing sometimes that I will do is if I'm feeling, I don't do this a lot, but sometimes if I'm feeling a lot of emotion about something or just a kind of a jumble of emotion, I will sit and I will just write. And just like what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and it just like it's not just really gonna make a whole lot of sense to anybody but me because it's just kind of one thing will lead to another thing, which leads to another thing. But so often I can go back and I'll throw it away, but I don't want to keep it. But I go back through it when I'm through and I like, whew, get it all out on paper, and I can go back and read through and find the lies. It's so easy to identify. Oh my gosh, do you really think that? Like, what in the world? Like, that's so dumb. I mean, like, why? Like, that's not true at all. Why would you think that? Not being mean to myself, but like, it's like, oh, good grief. It's like, so that's been super, super helpful for me to process emotions. So yeah, this was a really, really good chapter too. I need to finish I need to finish the last page. But let me see what he's got highlighted here on the last two page. What's the price of your joy and happiness? Ooh, that's a good one. Um, if you can't be truthful with yourself, what right do others have to expect that you'll be honest with them? Honesty is the springboard from which every emotion emanate. I don't know. Intentionality is the muscle you need to get you those honest emotions. And then filling your home with positive emotions. So this is kind of a squirrel a little, but I have been consuming all things Sally Clarkson lately. I love Sally Clarkson. She's really big on she has a book entitled The Life-Giving Home. So she's really big on home and children and family and all that. And so, one of the things that she talks about is, bringing beauty and joy into your home and what simple things do you enjoy? And so for me, it's, I will light a candle. And that brings me joy and kind of peace, even in the midst of the chaos, to see that little candle flickering. And I will put on music or I will like Saturday mornings, I have biscotti with my coffee. That's like a Saturday morning thing that I do. I would like to have biscotti every day, but it's not exactly the best way to kick off your day. But it's like bringing, like, I love fresh flowers, so I have a bouquet. I go to a Kroger every 2 or 3 weeks and get some fresh flowers and put them on the, so put them on the counter. But it's just like being intentional. And I think I wish I had done this more when I had little kids. And I was in the midst of so much chaos with all the diapers of all the babies and the baby food and the throw ups and all the things. But it's just something that filling your home with positive emotions. And so just beautifying and bringing the beauty into your home that you love. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it outside of your home, right? Just making that home a good place for you, because when you are calm or peaceful or even in the midst of the chaos, you can like, I don't know, it kind of helps to like recenter myself. Okay, Lord, I'm called to be a light bearer in the world. I'm called to be a light bearer in my home. This candle reminds me of that. Help me, Lord, in this moment. I'm about to lose my mind. Help me to be calm. I don't know, just things like that. So I haven't even read this chapter about filling your home with positive emotions, but I think that's really good. And then identifying your triggers. I can speak to that because, like I was saying, in that really dark, hard, difficult year that I had last year, my trigger, a huge trigger for me, was actually social media. And so it would get me spiraling with thoughts or fears or worries that I was struggling with. And so I would have to, like, if I got on social media, which is hard because we're in a social media business, but I could get on and then it'd be like, in just a couple of minutes, I'm like, okay, you're just gonna have to, like, maybe type up your post, because I would, maybe scroll for a second and you're like, nope, you're gonna need to go type up your post and like Drive. Then you're going to need to copy that and just post it on Facebook and then just be done. Right? Like, there were times I had to do that because that was a trigger for me and I wasn't going to go there. So, identifying those triggers and saying, okay, how can I work around? Like, how can I still work my business? That's just one instance, but I'm saying, like, not letting those triggers completely shut you down, right? Say, okay, this is a trigger right now. What can I do? If it's something about your business or around your business, like, what can I do to overcome this in this moment? Is there something I can do? And when we ask ourselves questions, right, our brain starts looking for an answer. So, there's lots of times during the day I can ask myself a question. Okay, Jennifer, what do you need to be doing right now? Or what is the best thing to be doing right now? Or what, like, for instance, the other day, somebody come to me. No, I counseled my own self. I was like, okay, if you had a team member that came to you with this problem that I was currently experiencing, what would you advise your team member? And I spoke out loud. I was like, well, I would say da 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 da. And then it was like, okay, there's your answer. Right? So asking yourself questions and switching the roles sometimes can be super helpful. And I am chasing rabbits all over the place. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful for somebody. But does anybody have anything else on chapter 5? Amanda, do you have
Yeah,
anything?
I'll share this really quick. So
Oh, hey,
I was
Fred.
just finishing it up while we were talking because
Yeah.
I had page 76 and 77 left as well. That meditate, I think that's something that's really hard just for us as moms and women to do, because it says when you slow your brain down, and like you said that you talked to a counselor recently, and men and women think differently, and we have 48 tabs open at all times.
Mhm.
Whereas men just don't. But it says concentrate and focus on what you want. Your brain engages and moves you closer to those goals. And I think that that's something, like, I don't start my day meditating. Like, I get up, hop in the shower, go get my kids up, we leave, and then it's go, go, go all day long. It's the same thing when you get home, you get supper
Yeah.
made, you get fed, you do all the evening homework, music practice, and then you sit down at 8:30, and then my brain just goes, I cannot handle anymore,
Mhm.
you know? So trying to find that time, I think that that's something I'm guilty of, is just not meditating. And then 2, identifying those triggers. Like, that's not something I've ever really thought about doing. I've identified like toxic people and toxic cultures and removed those from my life. But, trying to kind of just find that balance and manage those. So I think the end of this was really good, because I tend to be like an extremely positive person. It's actually one of my strengths, which is exciting to me. So I don't do well with negativity or negative people or unkindness, because I'm a very loyal person. I'm very kind to you. So when people aren't kind back, like, that's just, I don't do well with that. But I thought the meditation was really good. I think from just a standpoint of the busy lifestyles that we tend to lead. Jennifer, you have 6 kids, so you know what that's like. And Amanda does too. My mom had 6 kids and she was always on the go. passing herself in the road, taking everybody to all the things.
Mhm.
So like that wasn't something that I grew up watching. You know, she never had time to meditate. And definitely didn't have the personal growth books like we do now to
Yeah.
invest in herself. So I think that that's something that really stuck out to me.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, and the Bible talks about meditation a lot. There's a lot about meditate on your word, meditate, you know. So it's clearly something that the Lord wants us to do. So it's like, I think in the trap can be, Jennifer, is, you know, if let's say you set an alarm and or you did a 5 minute, right? Like a 5 minute meditation time. And then you get on social media and so meditated for 30 minutes or so did, you know, it's like the comparison trap is there too. I know for me it can be for, you know, people's different Bible times or their quiet times or their reading, whatever, the comparison trap is there. But I think being intentional about that meditation, Brittany Howard was really real in a podcast, her Patreon app, a few months ago, just talking about she didn't have, I think she had a post about it too on social media about her like consistent prayer life. And she started out literally, I think she set a timer for just a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes a day. I don't know. But she was consistent with that. And then she grew that time. And she was just saying how that's made the biggest impact in her life is just having that consistent daily time. So don't despise the small beginnings is what I would say. So even if like, I need to meditate, like if you can, like, I don't know, the next thing I would say is ask yourself the question, where can I fit in time? Right? That's the big question for all the moms. I don't see how you do it. Getting up and getting all the kids off to the schools and the job. Woo!
Oh, I think that book that we read back in the fall. Oh
Shopping
my
for
goodness.
time.
Yes, it was really good too. It was very helpful. You know, I did the 5 a.m. I didn't do the 5 a.m. I did the 5:30 a.m. And then I started my new job. So now I do the 5:50 a.m. So I've got to go back to the 5:30 a.m. and find that little bit of extra time too. So I think like that has been good this week too, because it's like, okay, you know, I'm not in the mode right now where I'm working my business. So, but I can do things different. I can spend 1 more minute here. I can spend, 10 more minutes here doing different things. And so I think it's been just a good reminder for me
Yeah.
too of things that we had kind of went through in that book and learning from. So
I love
there's
that.
always more time. It's where you spend it and how you prioritize it.
I love that. The power of one more. Yeah. And like we were saying, like when you're intentional about looking for that time or looking for whatever, then you'll most likely find a way. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. All right. Anybody else have some last thoughts before we wrap up? This was really good week. Really, really good week. Okay. Well, we will do, is it 6, 7, and 8? I think maybe on the original. I think we have to do 3 chapters pretty much every week until uh, let me go to my featured post and let me go read my own post. May the 12th will be chapter 6, 7, and 8. So we'll meet back up next week. I will not be here next week. I am leaving Chloe and I are leaving for England tomorrow evening. We are flying to England with Clarita and her girls. So we will be in England next week and we are 6 hours ahead of Georgia. So it will be 3 a.m. So I do not want to get up at 3 a.m. and do a Zoom. So, but I will read my book. I promise. I will read it on the plane or somewhere. So, anyway, I'll say a prayer for safe travels. Thank you, Jennifer. I hope we have a good time too. I'm sure we will. Oh, Ashley, Fooey girl, you don't get your book until the 13th. I'm sorry. It is a good book though. So when you have it, you will love it. So, all right, guys. Well, thank y'all for being on, and we will see. I'll get this recording up. Hopefully, it'll be okay, but I'll get this up soon. All right. Bye, guys.